Okay,
All right.
the
Hello,
people.
everybody. We are back. This is Media Cyphers, only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. We just wrapped our first big interview of the primary season, Diop Harris. I will reach out to Sean McCann. So there are two candidates running.
Three.
T Yeah,
There's,
there's a third one. I did not realize there was a third one in our district. Well, Bill
uh,
Heisinger. I was going to say two running in the Democratic primary to unseat Heisinger. Was there a third what person? I didn't know that.
there's a third. Okay, so the people who are running for the Democratic ticket this year, you have Harris the second, who we just interviewed. You know what I'm saying? Good dude. You know what I'm saying? There's some answers that he gave that was a little problematic. I ain't gonna lie to you that I did not like, but a good dude overall. I think he's a fine candidate. You got McCain, right? McCann, John McCann, right?
Hmm.
And then you have Richard Aaron. He's
Hmm.
he's
Yeah.
uh, there's no picture of him. I'm looking at this is uh ballotpending.org.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Hmm.
You have Bill Heisinger, who's our who's currently in the seat, the incumbent, and then you have Phil Tens Tanis. He's a Republican trying to unseat Bill.
Okay. Yeah. Hmm.
And then we had someone that withdrawed or was disqualified, Jessica Swads. I don't know how to say her last name. I'm butchering y'all names. I'm sorry, y'all. I love y'all. I hope that y'all come on the show, but I'm gonna butcher y'all names. I'm so sorry.
Hmm.
But
Um,
what? Okay, I know that we have other stories, but if you want to give your quick 2 cents on how you felt about the interview.
well, yeah, I think, it, this is a cycle where people with insurgent campaigns are doing a little bit better. I think that's kind of where Diop is positioning themselves. I do think, like, I don't agree, I think, like, that experience in Washington helps them in certain ways, but it can also be like kind of a hindrance. We referenced like Graham Plattner right before the break, but thing is, he didn't work in Washington. He was like a union organizer. So there might be. I think, like, you have to really be bold in your progressive messaging, to kind of, like, uh, c- uh thread the needle with that, because, like I said, it is, to certain ears it's going to be good to hear. It's like, oh, you have experience with legislation, but also, to if you're running on that kind of populist ticket, some people is like, you're part of the swamp. Ugh, there's two ways you can kind of put that. Now, it's not to say, of course, Heisinger is a swamp monster. It's not like he can you can credibly say the other guy is not, but that could be a challenge. And Sean McCann is a big name in Kalamazoo. He's been part of Kalamazoo politics for a long time. He's a nice enough guy. I've met and worked with him on various issues over the years. I think, in the totality, Diop has a better platform, but I do think, in order for you to ride that sort of insurgent energy, you gotta be bold. You gotta be bold, in order, especially somebody who is kind of such a name in the Kalamazoo area like Sean McCann is.
Yeah, yeah. It's there. Shout out to Sean. I've met him. I think he's cool. But I am gonna keep it real. Harris has a much better platform. It's not
Yeah,
even, it's not even close.
and
and
we're
and
gonna yeah, we're gonna invite Sean on the show too. So
yeah,
so that he can have his uh 2 cents, or let's start. I'm trying to
I,
think of it right.
but
He
that's the
can he
thing.
can have his turn in the hot seat. There we go. Yeah.
Look,
So,
but that's the thing though. I want them to have better platforms. Like
yeah, yeah.
even things that I disagree with. I may have a slight disagreement with Harris. I want him and Sean to have progressive populist platforms that that will not just uh 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 cement a great foundation for our base of support in the Democratic Party, but has a very real chance of beating the Republicans. There's no reason in this county that that the Republicans should be representing us. Not in any way, shape, or form. We should be represented by a actual progressive.
Yeah,
But yes, like
and that's the
Sean,
thing too. It's like and I've said this since we were redistricted. Heisinger like on paper is a much easier candidate to beat than Fred Upton ever was. Fred Upton rode that like kind of like I'm one of the good Republic that kind of centrist rail, and like Bill Heisinger is a very overt Trumper, and considering how many like very deep blue areas are in this district, it always kind of baffled me how come they haven't put a viable race against this guy. So I mean, whoever wins, I hope they are able to do that. I mean, either of them would be better than Heisinger, but if we're going to see any actual improvement, it needs to be a progressive platform, and uh, something that again, like I said, Diop probably has a better platform. Well, he does. So yeah.
can't
Okay.
run Republican light,
Yeah.
conservative light, and
Mhm.
that you're going to beat the Republican, will beat a Republican. And
Yeah.
we have seen too many races across the country where Trump plus 10 districts were flipped, has been flipped by centrist and progressive, but they've been flipped harder, and they have and a wider margin of victory has happened for those who are progressive and they have a consistent and active platform speaking on the policies that will better help Americans. We need our politicians to understand that. I think that's the thing that with Mr. Harris, I do like, and I do like that he does have that, and that is something that is I find that I find appealing.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I want to hear Sean, I want to hear Mr. Aaron, because those two are Poland are all running against Heisinger. We need one of y'all three to win. We need one of y'all three to win.
All right. So with that, we've got only got about 15 more minutes on the show, but there's definitely a few things we need to talk about. I'm just gonna do a quick hit before we get to national stories. I want to give a shout out to folks over at the University of Michigan. The Postdoctoral Research Organization is a new union that's going to be organized over at the University of Michigan. It was recognized in March 2026 after a successful card signing campaign. Um, and just some quick numbers. The NIH minimum salary for postdocs starts at 63,480, but at University of Michigan they make closer to 35,000. For context, that's almost half the U.S. median income of 67.5 thousand dollars, and the cost of living in Ann Arbor is 11% higher than national average. So again, postdoc instructors have been doing a lot of work and mostly living off a lot of ramen. So hopefully this new union they got can start making some moves to improve those wages and conditions for the postdocs over at U of M. But yeah, again, congratulations to them for getting together and fighting for a living wage.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree.
Hmm. So we were talking a little when we were talking having our conversation with Diop. We were talking a little bit about how Cuba is almost the new third rail on American politics because it used to be Israel, but now it's like history has really turned a page on that. People cannot ignore the atrocities that the Israeli government is doing. Even a lot of conservatives are having to grapple with their young voters being adamantly against the genocide and all that. But one issue that is very quiet and honestly, like one if I were to criticize something that Diop said. He said something about like, talking about, getting, or negotiating with Cuba, getting to do what we want them to do. Like, here's the thing: the American government's policy on Cuba, we want them to not exist. We want them to be a client state to the U.S. I feel like that's something they could afford to maybe do some more homework on because, yeah, there is no like, America wants them to stop having an independent socialist economic system, and there's no like negotiating with that. But I say that to say this: Cuba, the people of Cuba are suffering like they never have before. The Trump administration has really ratcheted the embargo up to 11. The Cuban people have been dealing with rolling brownouts. There's like food shortages. They have got a little bit of help from China and Russia recently, but it's not quite enough to meet with demand. And in the midst of all this, there's been a deafening silence from Republicans and Democrats, and even a lot of progressive Democrats, on how we are literally starving out the people of Cuba. And
You
I
follow the documentary. Shout out to More Perfect Union. Shout out to Democracy Now. They've done a number of stories covering our man-made war crime against Cuba, our sanctions against Cuba. That when the rolling blackouts happen, doctors have to run to the incubators of babies and hand pump the ventilators for babies who are on the respirator machines, because if they don't, those babies will die. Our
yeah,
policy to Cuba, our policy towards Cuba, a country that is 10 miles away from us, or not 10 miles, but however close it is to America, is killing babies, literally and figuratively. It's bad enough that Doge already cut U.S. aid, and we can have a conversation about U.S. aid being soft power, soft military power, and things of that nature. But there's rapid Ebola spreading in multiple countries, and people are dying from the lack of medicine care that they're getting because we cut U.S. aid. But what we are actively doing against Cuba, actively doing and choosing to do, is if it was any other, if it was a country doing that to us, we would drone strike them. We would try to do regime change against them. We would retaliate if another country was doing to us what we're doing to Cuba. It's not okay.
and it's like the pretense for all this aggression is ridiculous, even more so than like even though it's a childish argument to say that like Iran would nuke us, like that's still like that's a tangible thing. A nuclear weapon is a thing. Iran is Cuba has been sending doctors all over the world. Oh my God, they've been sending doctors. They're coming with their doctors. They're coming with their humanitarian aid.
They're,
Yeah.
they're coming
Uh,
with their medical aid. They're coming.
mhm.
They're coming with medical aid. They're coming with their medical
There's scientific
expertise.
advancements. No,
They're, help, they're helping people. They're helping people with the
yeah,
vision and the
yeah.
dental, with the
Mhm.
vision and dental.
Which again, that country has done. What's that scene from Iron Man? It's like Cuba developed all of this with a box of scraps, like because of us, because we don't let them have any like modern stuff from anywhere else.
Now,
The
do you know? Do you know? And this is fun fact for those who are not old enough. And I don't think the person that we just had might have been old enough. He might have been old enough. You remember during Hurricane Katrina? Do you remember during the Bush administration during Hurricane Katrina, Cuba actually sent ships to New Orleans to help the people of New Orleans, because our president numbnuts, the original dummy in chief, was George W. Bush Jr., and he let a city drown. He let a city drown. They
Mhm.
they they chose to uh they chose not to prepare adequately. They chose not to fund FEMA adequately, and we had a natural disaster that turned into a man-made disaster. Cuba tried to help us.
Oh yeah.
bruh.
And so another reason we're bringing this up, you may not have heard this, but a couple of high profile activist, Medea Benjamin, and a high profile Twitch streamer. We've actually talked about him on the show before, Hasan Piker, have both been subpoenaed by the U.S. government. They were involved in the Cuban aid flotilla last month. I can't remember if we reported on that or not, but basically sending like humanitarian supplies, going down there. And now the government, the U.S. government, wants to investigate, see if they did anything illegal. There are now. I thought about researching the legal pretense of all this and stuff, but look, morally, sending supplies to Cuba was the right thing to do, and it's only a it's an unjust law. How does the saying go? And something about it's an unjust law. So, whether or not Hassan and Medea actually broke the law in delivering aid to Cuba, I do not know. That law is BS anyway. I don't, there are certain things, there are ways for Americans to go to Cuba, but I can't remember exactly what the stipulations are. I think you have to like summon Henry Kissinger's ghost and then answer three riddles. I don't know. But
No, you have
it's,
to you have to get approved by you have to get approved by the federal government. You have to
yeah, to be
buy
serious,
you
yeah.
have to buy, yeah, you have to buy a visa. You have to buy an approved visa. You have to go in and stay in approved hotels that the government tells you to stay, right?
Oh yeah,
Because
because
they
well, that was another thing. Everybody's was yelling at Hassan, "You're staying at luxury hotels." It's like literally, I have to stay here. That's where the
yeah,
government
they don't have
says
a
they
choice.
go.
They don't have a choice on where they can stay when you go to Cuba. The government literally tells you uh uh where you can stay because some of the hotels and some of the bars and places they're funded by the state. They're funded by the government of Cuba, and you putting money into those establishments is looked at as helping Cuba, right? Helping the government, right? The problem with this and the problem with that assessment is the organizations Code Pink. I think it was a Progressive International. I think it's Progressive International that also helped with that Hasan Piker and others were a part of. There were over 600 delegates from 33 countries and 120 organizations that went to that convoy that went and brought. I think it was 50 tons of aid to Cuba in the convoy, right? It was between 20 tons and 50 tons, right? If I remember Ryan Grimm, shout out to Ryan Grimm and him on Breaking Points and Drop Site and other organizations. They all went there to report what was going on and to look at the conditions that our sanctions were doing. And they all got this approval from the government to go. Yet it was a right wing slop poster on Twitter that said Code Pink and Mr. Piker actually broke the law, and this government
So this
ran
is
with
kind of a similar situation to like the Somali daycare situation where like
it.
it's based on like
It's
no
based
info slop. Like that part I didn't know.
it's based on a real. It's based on a lie, and that's the thing that makes me the most angry. Because you want to know who also did who profited from that slop? Nick Shirley. Because Nick Shirley also went to Cuba, but he stayed in a hotel that was not sanctioned by the United States. He actually
Oh,
did break the law that they're trying to hit Piker with.
yeah.
That's the 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 chaos that we are dealing with right now. That the pure garbage, the pure dumpster juice of this
Um,
administration.
there's also we're not going to leave out the reaction of like the centrist blue MAGA types because we've seen everybody, they're throwing like a ticker tape parade for Hassan is being dinged by the Trump administration, and it's just like this is one of the stupidest. Hassan has clapped back at this and just pointed out how stupid it is. But the idea is people in the Democratic Party coalition who are getting really irritated that the dude has such a following and such juice and all that stuff, and they don't. Their crusty old policies don't. Now are happy that the Trump administration is subpoena, giving him a subpoena over Cuba. One thing, or two things, I should say. One, this really illustrates their absolute lack of, they really don't care about what is actually being done to the people of Cuba. It's just they can score cheap political points because somebody they don't like is getting incurring the wrath of the Trump administration. I also just want to say this is short-sighted in the most obvious sense. These very same people will point out the fascist threats of the Trump administration. Look what they did to Stephen Colbert. Look what they did to Jimmy Kimmel. All that stuff. And then when it goes after somebody whose speech they don't like, they are clapping like stupid barking seals that like, oh, Hassan's getting some, and like these people, they know that we are in that Weimar Germany moment. These people are cognizant of it. We are in the middle of that poem, but like, how do they think the poem goes? It's like, first they came for Hassan Piker, and I did not speak up because I thought it was based. And then they came for me, and I said, "What?" Oh,
No, no, no. First they went for Jimmy Kimball. No, first they went for Jimmy Kimball and Stephen Colbert, and I didn't care because I was a late show host. Then they came with streamers, and I didn't care because they didn't cheerlead for my side hard enough. And now when they're coming for me, no one's here because they're all already in the camps. That's that's the thing that makes me the most angry. Nick Shirley, Laura Lumen, the person who's giving Trump fellatio on a regular basis, that troglodyte. Um,
is that the
uh, you,
woman who looks like Jigsaw? Is that that's a hard time keeping all those people.
uh, uh, Nick Fuentes, the Nazi. All
Mm-hmm.
of them are celebrating
Yeah.
Hasan Piker being maybe getting subpoenaed by the government. And you, as someone who considers yourself a Democrat, blue MAGA, I'm talking to blue MAGA, the the Harris stands who are celebrating, or not just the Harris stands, these are the neoliberal centrists who are celebrating Hassan getting deposed. Because I don't know if it's Harris stands or not. I don't know who these people are, but I have seen on Blue Sky and on Threads people celebrating this that supported Harris. They will do this to you as well. They're going to do this to you as well.
Oh yeah. You have to
I,
understand, like, like they're going after like the big bad Marxist leftist. To most people on the right, like these people call Nancy Pelosi a communist. Like they're not gonna differentiate between you and Hassan Piker. Get out of
they,
here.
they called President Obama a socialist. They called President Obama a communist. They called him a Marxist. If they can say that about President Obama and Chuck Schumer, what do you think they're going to say about you? What do you think they will say about you? What do you think they do? You if you think that they don't see you the same way as they see Hassan, then you've lost the plot. You
Yeah.
truly lost. And this
It's
also
again, we're in a fascist moment. We need something like a united front, but you just want to shoot spitballs at people with a better understanding of political economy than you. That's great job, guys.
and because I know we don't have a lot of time, but that leads to my quick hit of the day. We didn't talk about it. We didn't talk about it the other day, and I wanted to talk about it. There was the San Diego shooting at the mosque
Terrible.
at the Islamic Center. There was there was two teenagers. I think it was a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old that that opened fire at the Islamic Center and and then killed himself, right? The reason why I wanted to bring it up is because the manifesto that the FBI has put out is the anti is littered with white replacement theory, with the Great Replacement theory, blaming Jews, spewing nihilistic, anti-Muslim, misogynistic, anti-black, anti-gay, anti-Hispanic, anti-trans hate rhetoric, and that was their justification for shooting this religious institution, right? This Islamic Center. The reason why I want to bring this up is because these teams celebrated and was basically celebrating neo-Nazi ideology. And how many shooters? If we're talking about this shooting that happened in San Diego, we're talking about the Buffalo shooting that happened in New York. We're talking about the shooting that happened at the Jewish synagogue. How many of these people who are literally quoting the Great Replacement theory and anti-immigrant and anti-Muslim ideology, and they're sounding just like Tucker Carlson and
Yep.
Marjorie Taylor and Candace Owens and the president. We have the right wing in this country has normalized the far right neo-Nazi ideology. They have mainstreamed it, and it is now the most common thing in the world to see this 15-year-old and this 17-year-old quoting the same type of garbage. The
Yeah.
stuff that they talk in this manifesto is no different than Andrew Tate or Sneeko or Cavicular or any of these right wing troglodytes. It's the same. It's the same rhetoric. And then we wonder, oh man, where did they get this from? Well, Trump and his affiliates, and Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Green, they normalized it. They have normalized the pathology and ideology of mass shooters, and they've made that the right wing party of this country.
Yeah, pretty much. The the Overton window, especially in the right wing direction, is just, we went from like a lot of the stuff 10, 15 years ago would have been considered like the fringe of the fringe, but now it's just like, it's, especially for some of these younger right wing people who talk about like that is their mainstream.
Yeah. Like dog, look, how many times did we talk about what was it? We just got done talking about it recently. The group chat, Florida's group chat, right? Hey, they're talking about how they have a Nazi streak, right? How many of the young Republican group chats, right? Talking about how they love the mustache man, right? How many,
Yeah.
many times have we seen this? And this is what the Republicans are normally saying when people are not looking. This is the thing that they don't say it in public, but these are all things that they agree with. And we
Hmm.
wonder when we see the manifesto of the mass shooters, they sound like the mainstream Republican Party now. This is this is this is the norm, but this is not normal. And I want people to understand that.
Yeah,
The
no.
Republican Party has used the grievance and identity politics of neo Nazis and fascists to harm this country.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I couldn't really said it better myself. And yeah, just if like young men who are going in this right wing pipeline, do your best. I mean, maybe try to hit them on Hasan, before he gets sent to prison for being decent to Cubans. I don't know.
Yeah. Wait,
God.
wait, wait. Before we switch back, and I'm sorry, we didn't even bring this up. I want you to think about the precedent that is setting, right? Hasan Piker, Code Pink, and other progressive groups can get subpoenaed for for sending humanitarian aid to a country that's trying to save babies on incubators, right?
Mhm.
Regardless if you agree with the government's philosophy or not, they're trying to save babies. Meanwhile, the Trump administration defunded the FBI defunded the FBI and other law enforcement. They defunded them from going after sexual predators, sex crime, human traffickers. They have defunded the FBI and other task force and other agencies from going after those people, and they have not subpoenaed anybody that was attached to the Epstein files. They will subpoena a Twitch streamer in Code Pink because they're trying to help give humanitarian aid to countries that we're harming before they will subpoena people that was in the Epstein files. If that doesn't tell you everything about the Republican Party and their priorities, I don't know what does.
Absolutely. All right, I think we're going to have to wrap it up there. We're already kind of running over time. Lawrence, thank you for joining me today. Thank you so much. Thanks to Diop Harris for taking time out of his busy campaign schedule to talk with us about the issues. Y'all have been listening to Media Ciphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. You can also find us online at Media Ciphers on Facebook, YouTube, and the Media Ciphers Kalamazoo podcast you can find on most podcasting apps. Until next time, everybody, keep on fighting for that revolution solution.